Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch this podcast. It is me, Omar Borja, the Burger Popper, coming back with another episode of the Hardware Pod with my good friend and co-host Jackson Danner. We're back for week 2, and what a week it was in college football. We had a bunch of upsets across both subdivisions, and just a lot of just high action that we're going to talk about. Not really many narratives to draw for the Heisman race, of course, with it being week 2. I think Mike Alejado for Heisman it may be over for now. Sadly, the hope is just for him to stay healthy at this point. Sadly, so Jackson, how is everything going?
Yeah, hopefully he can stay healthy. There are a few. We're always going to talk the Heisman just a little bit. I do want to just throw something quickly out there. Julian Sayin, obviously the quarterback for Ohio State, outplayed Arch for the most part in his first career start. Julian Sayin became the first quarterback to beat a number 1 ranked team in his first start since Jim Harbaugh in 1985. So I thought that was a stat worth mentioning, since we don't talk too much Ohio State football on hardware typically. But
I mean, even when Ohio State beats the number 1 team in the country, Michigan still has to
gets brought up.
Yeah, it's like it's rent free. Like the jokes just write themselves. Honestly, it's actually hilarious. Like I have no animosity against Ohio State, but the jokes write themselves. Even
it could have been any Michigan quarterback. It had to be Jim Harbaugh.
yeah. Like okay, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna go into because like the jokes are just hilarious. Even the last thing I needed was Lou Holtz just keeping the Ryan Day beef alive this week, which is exactly what happened. So. Yeah, I mean, I can go all day. It's just funny. I don't have any animosity towards Ohio State. Like the colonel that's in charge of me is Ohio State fan. The guy that I work across in the cubicle across, the civilian I work with, he's an Ohio State fan. He's a really cool guy. But yeah, I mean, it's just funny, honestly.
Poetic beginning to the season with Lee Corso's final game day on the field. I didn't know what they were going to do, but that was incredible. I tried to soak up every minute of it, and then that was a great game. And then noon slot, and then we had enough going on the 3:30 night windows and late night windows to keep us entertained for certain. This is our last college football week without any Thursday night games. Obviously, we're recording this early Friday morning. Philadelphia, Dallas kind of stole the show, I would assume, so they didn't want to put anything on the NFL start to the season. That's my guess, at least. So, but next week we start, I think it's Wake Forest, NC State, something like that. That's going to be on Thursday night. Matt Berry on the call, which is always enjoyable. And then, we're just going to get college football is the only sport where there is so much juice in, week 3, week 4, week 5, because everyone loves week 1. And then, you get into week 2, week 3, it doesn't matter as much in a lot of sports. And then in college football, it does, even with the 12-team playoff. So,
yeah, exactly. So I mean, again, like this is kind of like a lull period. Not many great games, like you said, and of course Thursday night too. Like the Friday night slate looks a bit better, really. I know we got James Madison versus Louisville, but I mean, again, any football is good football, as of course our podcast highlights with the depth of talent and games that we mentioned.
Northern Illinois, Maryland. This is not one of my games of the week to watch, but just at a glance, Northern Illinois, Maryland intrigues me. Obviously, Northern Illinois, we saw, they beat Notre Dame last year, all of that. They did kind of play with their food against Holy Cross. Really, Holy Cross kept it interesting. I think they only won by like 2 or 3 points. And then Maryland seems to have found themselves a quarterback, and I'm blanking on the true freshman's name. I'm just going to pull it up real quick. And of course, Malik Washington. That's right. It's early in the morning, guys. So in Malik Washington, they really seem to have maybe found their guy. So that'll be an interesting game to watch. I think that's on the Big Ten Network. And then Eastern Washington, Boise State, and Western Illinois, Northwestern, I imagine wouldn't be interesting. But Northwestern disrespecting the city of New Orleans, if you saw that. So
yeah.
The request did come of late for such a request, is what the report was. But to steal a joke from Dan Wetzel, like any good coach, he took something that was half true and just made it. You disrespected the entire city. So
Yeah. Okay. That actually does make sense because if they ask like a couple days before game day, like yeah, like equipment trucks, logistics, like don't really work like that. But
yeah,
got a lot of
yeah.
respect
Tough.
for John Summerall. I
But,
mean,
but props to Lane for finding motivation in something that was a little uncontrollable. So
yeah, Tulane looks scary. Honestly, I mean,
oh, they
Red
look
Swamp.
good.
Yeah.
They just restocked after losing Mensa. They seem to look just as good. But we will go into our players of the week from week one. Omar, who did you have that impressed you on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, so for me, I got Nate Hampton for Gardner Webb. Gardner Webb with the upset over Western Carolina. Excuse me, this in a really thrilling 52-45 win for the running Bulldogs. Hampton had 263 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and he had 4 rushing touchdowns, 28 carries for 132 yards in the upset win. And this is a great story, Hampton. That is, Hampton had only 22 passes in 4 years prior. This is a senior. This isn't a freshman playing ball or starting at quarterback for Gardner Webb, but he only had 22 passes in his 4 years at Liberty. And in fact, if the name might sound familiar, it did to me. You know, before looking it up, before looking up his stats, just kind of rode the pine in that system. And I mean, this is a guy that may not have been speedy enough for the Chadwell system out at Liberty, with him being 6'6", 240, but he has found his niche with Gardner Webb. And Gardner Webb, that they're now at the point. I mean, kudos to Trey Lamb for building what he built out there in Boiling Springs, but now a consistent playoff contender at the very least in the Big South OVC. And Hampton just had a wonderful game, probably one of the better stories. I mean, uh, and honestly, like, I love player agency, and Hampton is a transfer from Liberty, but the fact that he stuck with Liberty as a program, um, and I guess developed, stayed there for 4 years, and then used his redshirt year to go to an FCS school in his senior year. I mean, got to give kudos to him for sticking out a situation and then just leaving at at the last moment possible for his best interest, rather than just kind of you know just either chasing the money right away or honestly just not developing under one system. But Hampton looked good, and Hampton and Gardner Webb will play Georgia Tech this weekend. Flashback to 2008 when Gardner Webb almost beat Georgia Tech on the road. They lost that one 10-7, so a bit of a payback game. But yeah, Nate Hampton is a guy to watch, and probably a Walter Payton sleeper if he can just continue getting multiple rushing touchdown games. I say 20 rushing touchdowns makes him a Walter Payton, puts him on the long list of Walter Payton finalists.
OBC Player of the Week, it looks like, just pulling up his Instagram, which is I would hope so after a performance like that. So
I meant to say completion. I'm sorry, Jackson. I meant to say completion percentage needs some work. He was 12 of 30, which is an interesting stat line.
That's
Yeah, 12 for 30 is but 263 yards. So
I'd be curious how many drops on that.
Ooh, I don't have that right
for
now.
30 and still threw for 260. You must have been throwing like deep balls the entire game, man. Like that's the only explanation.
Yeah.
That or they have some that or we gave it to the wrong guy. There's some receivers with some obscene yak like that. Those are the only two. Those are the only two explanations. So
yeah.
I'm curious. I don't think PFF has weekly grades on Gardner Webb this early, at least. I'd be curious to pull that up. So see what his deep ball, grades are. But my offensive player of the week, I'm going to go with Ryan Brown, the quarterback from Purdue. Brown had an interesting path to becoming the starter, where last year he only started 2 games, yet he became just one of 2 Purdue quarterbacks since 1970 to have 250 passing yards and 100 rushing yards in a game. He entered the portal in the offseason and joined North Carolina with Bill Belichick. Then in the spring, he changed his mind and came back to Purdue to enter a quarterback competition with Malachi Singleton. August 21st, he was named a starter just a week before the season and against Ball State. And yes, I know it's Ball State, but he completed 18 passes of 26 attempts, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. If you've listened to Hardware for some time, you know that I'm a Barry Odom believer. Loved him at UNLV. It really seems that he found his Jaden Miava that can be an efficient passer and run the ball enough just to keep the quarterback run game in play. So Purdue, a team that's on the up and up, no way to go but up. after the past couple of years. It really just has been on a downward spiral. It felt like ever since that Cheez-It Bowl loss to Purdue, that was just a blowout. And then now they brought in Barry Odom from UNLV. They've got their quarterback. They retained their quarterback in Ryan Brown that showed some promise in the 2 games the 8 games he played, 2 games he started. And just a name to watch out for. Big Ten loaded with quarterbacks. You can add Ryan Brown to the list.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Brown is interesting now. I think it's the timing of you mentioning him on the podcast is interesting with the NCAA abolishing the second transfer portal window, which that will not happen again, his situation. But it's good too. Like anytime like you get a quarterback with skills that your program has never seen, like Purdue, which they love to throw the ball, even dating back to the days of Bob Greasy and Jack Molenkoff back in the late 60s. You just look at all the great pocket passing quarterbacks that have come along the way. Mark Herman, Jim Everett, Drew Brees, of course, and Curtis Payne. Yeah.
Drew Brees should be the first name on that list if we're talking Purdue pocket passers. But no, you're right. Purdue with a rich quarterback history, and Ryan Brown, hopefully, his situation, like you said, won't happen again. I do find it unique, but clearly there was something of some promise. If you're leaving Bill Belichick, which I know was not everything it was chalked up to be, at least in his debut. But you don't leave a situation like that or an opportunity like that just to go back to nothing, right? There's clearly something that he believed in, going back to the Boilermakers. Omar, who is your defensive player of the week from week 1?
So I got Christian Thomas for Maine in a losing effort with 15 tackles, chasing down that shotgun option offense that Jamie Chadwell and Liberty runs. Maine was in that game up until the very end. Well, not the very end. They're up in that game until the fourth quarter. That game was tied in the fourth quarter, and Maine looked like that they could beat, a Liberty team that has been one of the most unbeatable teams in Conference USA in the past 3 years. I think they have 3 Conference USA losses in 2 years. Excuse me, but Thomas looked great at linebacker, and Thomas has outstanding potential. In just 8 games last year, he had 64 tackles. This is a guy that when healthy, he definitely could cross the 100 tackle threshold. And again, like it takes great football IQ, great awareness to see the flow of a play, especially against an offense that has as much moving pieces and distractions as Chadwell's Liberty scheme has, as Chadwell's gun option scheme has. So I was really impressed with Christian Thomas. 15 tackles against that scheme with the amount of times that the ball moves around in that offense. I mean, I can only imagine what he'll do with the full slate of games and with against offenses that are less complex than Chadwell's scheme. So Christian Thomas with a solid performance in a near upset against Liberty for Maine.
Maine with a surprisingly rich linebacker history as well. They've had, there are only so many NFL players or NFL alumni that went to Maine, and a good number of them were linebackers, which I thought, but I didn't know for a fact. And just a quick Google search told me, there are a few guys that played, double-digit seasons as linebackers from Maine in the NFL. So my defensive player of the week, I'm going to go with Jalen Schuler, the linebacker from USF. In his debut against Boise State, he had 14 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a fumble recovery. In 2024, he had set a goal of 100 tackles and fell just short at 97. He's off to a good start to reach that goal this year. I think he could even get beyond that with how he's just been flying all over the field in that defense. I talked about on our conference preview pod about how optimistic I am for USF season, but most of that optimism just for me was rooted in the offense. This defense, they looked better than the offense. They made Boise State look like just an absolute shell of themselves with nothing to be optimistic about if you're a Boise fan. And yes, there were some self-inflicted mistakes by Boise, but this defense looked like they came ready to play as opposed to the USF offense. They were still making some week one mistakes out there. I'll put it that way. But Jalen is a grad student who transferred from Coffeyville Community College after 2021. He's a veteran of this defense. He did miss some games last year due to injury, but you can tell he is a leader of this defensive unit. So Jalen Schuler, a name to watch out for. Maybe not in week 2 because they've got a pretty tough game in the Swamp. But after that, very optimistic that he'll have a great year.
Yeah, I mean, Schuler and the defense looked really dominant. I mean, you could tell that there was a level of physicality missing.
They were the best unit on the field,
Yeah.
undoubtedly.
Yeah, like there was a level of physicality missing from Boise State last year, and USF took advantage of it. When you think of USF, you think of Byron Brown, you think of, just explosive offense, just, a great spread attack from Alex Golish. But the defense really stole the show last Thursday. I was really impressed with them. And I mean, they are the second team that I remember, I guess like the second team in as many years to wear all black in the middle of the day in Florida and win, with Army being the other one. Like, it's really, I guess it's a psychological thing. I guess it works. Like, I would not have my players doing that, but if you know you got it, you got it. So, yeah, like just an interesting situation with them doing that. So going on to my HBCU player of the week to watch. So I have Curtis Allen for Virginia Union. No, and all I got to say is no Jada Byers, no problem for Virginia Union as they coasted to a 45-3 win over the defending SEAC champion Miles in the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic, which saw a 1,000% increase in viewership from last year. Last year, the ratings weren't even listed on Sports Media Watch, and the lowest viewership listed for week 1 last year is 21,000 fans. So you can assume that last year's game saw less than 20,000 television viewers on NFL Network, but over 200,000 viewers watched that game. And I think it nearly, I want to say it more than doubled the Orange Blossom Classic. Well, actually, that's not a fair comparison because that game didn't happen the same day. So disregard that. But Curtis Allen had 17 carries for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Classic. I mean, no Byers, no problem, like I said. Very efficient for the type of back that he is. He is a bigger back than Jada Byers at 215 pounds. Byers being on the lighter side, but I mean, if Byers can put up with the workload that he did in the last 2 years for Virginia Union, I mean, they're in good hands with Allen. Allen looks to be more durable. I mean, there looks to be less of a risk factor for injury for Allen with how sturdy he is. But man, can we get a Virginia Union back to win the Harlan Hill Trophy? Because Byers was hosed the last 2 years. Actually, let me fact check that, but I don't think he won a Harlan Hill Award or Harlan Hill Trophy, the past 2 years. I think it's gone to quarterbacks. Yeah, they gave it to Zach Zabrowski in two straight years from Central Missouri. So, man, let's get Curtis Allen. Let's get a Curtis Allen for Harlan Hill Trophy campaign going.
I was not aware of the viewership increase like that. I mean, that is a huge spike. That is awesome to see. And hopefully, I feel like NFL Network is just only going to get more popular with this ESPN consolidation, whatever you want to call it. So that is awesome. Hopefully that trend can continue in future years. My HBCU player of the week to watch, for me, it felt like an obvious choice in Andrew Body, the quarterback from Alabama State, against UAB. Went 18 for 24, 312 yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Pretty good. And then in rushing, another 16 attempts for 119 yards and another rushing touchdown. So that was a cool moment with Trent Dilfer, just taking some time to talk to him and told him just how he's one hell of a quarterback after the game, which is, pretty cool, again, considering the NFL career that Trent Dilfer had. Andrew Body really got off to a strong start last year, too, at the Orange Blossom Classic. But this performance and against an FBS opponent blew even that debut out of the water. He played like the best quarterback in HBCU football. I doubt you'll disagree with me, Omar. Tell me if you do. But Andrew Body with a phenomenal start for Bama State.
And I'll be honest, I think I, including myself, kind of wrote off Alabama State this year in the Celebration Bowl SWAC race. But man, like they reinserted themselves as a legitimate contender this past year, and the quarterback play in the SWAC is just going to be outstanding between body between Jacoby and Morgan. In fact, that game is going to be an absolute duel when those two play when Jackson State plays Alabama State later in the year. But yeah, Andrew Body was amazing, and UAB showed some really like steep concerns on defense, and I fear for what Blake Horvath will do to them this week on the road at the Naval Academy.
Yeah, excited to see, and the Naval Academy looking like the best service academy in football in week 1. So I don't think there's much.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
So we'll see what Bama State can accomplish on that.
Yeah,
Omar, we will move on to our week 2 games of the week to watch. No blockbuster matchups on the FBS side at the very least, and not really many on the FCS side either. You typically see that where week 1 it'll be a mix of some paycheck games and some blockbuster non-con, and then this week a little bit less. But what's your first game of the week that you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, so my first game of the week, Jackson. So I am going to go with. I'm sorry, our notes are out of order. That's what happens when you collaborate. But I got Towson at Morgan State in the battle for Greater Baltimore. Now, this is a game that my good friend, of course, Markham Big Money Banks will have co-host of HBC Nightly will of course have a vested stake in, with him being a former Morgan State player. So this is a shout out to you, Markham. But man, Morgan State has not won this rivalry since 2011. They are the losers of 7 straight in the battle for Greater Baltimore. And this is a debate for another time. Like, a win against the Coastal Athletic Association, may not have weight that it used to have with a bunch of the exits that the conference has seen. But Towson is a team that has been in this league since the 90s, when it was known as the Atlantic 10. So very credible again. And anytime you want to beat your crosstown rival as well when you're in the same city, obviously. Another statement win. It would be a statement win for the MEAC too. And Morgan State, back in 2023, they had that statement win against Richmond. They beat a ranked Richmond team on the road. I mean, this is the team that can upset CAA schools, but they're going to need their preseason MEAC Offensive Player of the Year, Jason Collins, to have another solid game. Collins looked really steady against South Alabama. I mean, he had 24 carries for 83 yards. He's 5'9", 200 pounds. So, I mean, he's a bit of a smaller back. Of course, like Alonzo Graham, the comparisons are going to be with Alonzo Graham, with them having a similar build, having a similar skill set. But Collins is just continuing that recent run of great tailbacks. The defense faltered, though, as you would expect against South Alabama. But they face Andrew Indorf, who had 3 touchdowns against Norfolk State last week for Towson. So this should be a good game. And I mean, Morgan State tends to play well against their style of play lends itself well against CAA schools, where they shorten the game, they lean on their defense. And I think I want to say their linebacker Eric Hunter too was on the Shrine Bowl 1000, because I do remember us previewing or taking notes on him before doing that podcast. So should be an interesting one, and maybe Morgan State will pull through and break that dreaded losing streak in the battle for Greater Baltimore. I'm sorry, that's a tongue twister.
I don't think we've got a official rivalry logo quite yet for
I think there is
Baltimore. We're getting there.
Let me look it up. There might be.
Omar really on the hype train for this one. While you're looking that up, I'll start with my week 1 game. I'm going to go with my deepest pull to start. Chattanooga at Tennessee Tech. Now, Tennessee Tech had their best season since 2011 last year, in going 7-5 under new head coach Bobby Wilder. They returned 3 all Big South Conference players on the defensive side. Last week, they had their season debut against an NAIA team in Cumberland Phoenix and won 65-0. That may sound insignificant, but on Saturday, another NAIA team actually beat an FCS school, with Weber International beating Stetson. So it means something.
Non-scholarship though, that's a Pioneer Football League, Jackson. It's very impressive still.
I'm trying. I'm trying for them, man. You gotta sell it however you can.
It's impressive.
Last year the offense was lacking, but they got quarterback Kakoa Visperas in the portal. He was the starter at Eastern Washington, which is a little bit more of a brand recognition name than Tennessee Tech. No offense to Tennessee Tech, but Now, maybe last year Eastern Washington didn't have the best offense, but they did have 5 losses where they put up at least 28 points. So you can't completely write off a guy like Vesperis. Chattanooga, they lost a ton of talent. They had 14 guys transferred to the FBS from last year. On offense, they lost their top running back. They lost their top 4 pass catchers. They lost 3 of their top 5 offensive linemen in snap count. On defense, they only retained 2 of their top 13 tacklers. So they just got decimated by the portal. In week 1, they lost to Memphis 45-10. Yes, but they didn't allow a Memphis receiver to get more than 55 yards. And they didn't allow a running back to reach 90 yards in the game, which you would expect either one of those position groups to meet that goal, so to speak, in a what's considered a cupcake game, right? In passing, they only allowed 1 passing touchdown and they got an interception. So now what really killed them was allowing 10 tackles for losses. That just, if you allow if double-digit tackles for losses, you're just not going to win the game. But this is going to be Chattanooga's first of 4 games against ranked FCS opponents. So I think Tennessee Tech will win this one. I'm just curious to see where Chattanooga stands. Can they improve in the trenches? Can they improve on special teams? They had a missed field goal. They had a blocked field goal. Only 1 kick return. Only 1 kick return that was for 15 yards in the entire game. And then for Tennessee Tech, yes, Cumberland Phoenix, they were incredibly outmatched, but is Kekoa Vesperis the real deal as a transfer, right? Has that experience at Eastern Washington, and hopefully he can continue what seemed like a successful week in week 1.
Yeah, so interesting part about this game with conference realignment, it's going to be a conference game next year. And it's great to have, the SoCon having, buying into in-state rivalries, because there will be 3 teams in Tennessee now at this point for the conference. And Tennessee Tech too, like they're a team that got a lot of attention in the preseason, had a really good season last year. And so this will be a resume builder too, I think, because Chattanooga has that national perception. Really, I know they lost a lot of talent, but Chattanooga, they have that perception of being a program that is close to being FBS ready in terms of moving up, in terms of having resources. So should be interesting too, an interesting game out in that state, which will kind of a preview of the SoCon in future.
I mean, it speaks to the development that the staff can provide if you have 14 guys transferred to the FBS from little old Chattanooga, right? So definitely means that they had a very good roster last year. You can only assume that there are guys sitting behind those 14 that also can reach FBS production. So
yeah. So going on to, I guess first let me show, because I did find the logo for the Battle of Greater Baltimore.
There is a logo
right there.
Oh, that's awesome. Logo. That's actually a good logo too.
It is. No AI gobbledygook on, none of that stuff. So I guess going on to my second game of the week. So going on a different note, I have Miami of Ohio versus Rutgers. And it's tough to say that a week 2 non-conference game is a must-win. But looking at Rutgers' schedule, this kind of is a must-win. I know Rutgers, every team will say they have playoff aspirations, but Rutgers more so is just kind of like being a consistent bowl team. It's a sweet spot for that program. If you know anything about the history of that program, they did not go to they did not go to a bowl from 1977 to 2004. I want to say. Yeah, I don't think or they did not go to a bowl from 1978 to 2004. Sorry, I mixed up my years. And then, they struggled in the Big Ten mightily, just having a big bowl drought from 2015 to 2020. Only reason they broke their bowl drought was because Texas A&M got COVID, placed in the Gator Bowl. So Rutgers likes to be a consistent bowl team in the Big Ten, especially going through the ringer of that conference now that it's expanded and has more competition. So looking at Rutgers' schedule, though, they have a brutal schedule ahead. They got Penn State, Ohio State, Illinois, Oregon alone. That looks like 4 losses, along with Washington, Minnesota, Iowa, and then Maryland and Purdue. So a game like Miami of Ohio is a must-win for them to get to a bowl. Miami of Ohio, though, looked very good on defense against Wisconsin. I don't know how much of that is due to Billy Edwards Jr. getting injured early on in that game and them handing the reins to Danny O'Neal, but the defense looked impressive. And on offense, DeQuan Finn kind of took some time to figure it out. He didn't have a great performance, but it's DeQuan Finn. We know that DeQuan Finn can ball, coming from Toledo, being the MAC Offensive Player of the Year, I want to say, in 2023 before transferring to Baylor. And so he will have it figured out. And Rutgers had some trouble defending Timothy Chalamet's favorite MAC player, Parker Navarro, who had 239 passing yards, 93 rushing yards against the Scarlet Knights on the road. So
the only college game day, or the only college game day picker from conference championship week to pick Miami of Ohio to win the MAC. Also, everyone else picked Ohio, and it was a blowout win for Miami. So sorry, any excuse to mention that, I have to.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this looks like a must win, honestly, for Rutgers. If Rutgers, I don't think they can afford to have to win 4 Big Ten games to make a bowl game. I'm not saying they're a bad team. They just really got a short stick in conference play in the Big Ten, and they really need this game. This game will be on Peacock, and if you're anyone and hopefully you're lucky like me with Peacock to get pulled into having a year of it for $20. Because of their desperation, but hopefully you'll be able to see that one because it is going to be a good game. It's going to be a tight game after Rutgers nearly lost to Ohio last week.
For my second game of the week to watch, I'm going to go with Virginia at NC State. Now, you might be wondering, week 2, wow, the ACC is really like starting conference play early this year. Except they're not. This is actually a non-conference game that they scheduled with each other and will not count towards ACC standings. We've seen that happen before in the ACC. I believe Wake Forest and UNC did the same a couple of years ago. But Virginia looked dominant against a Coastal Carolina team that I'll say they probably wouldn't have looked dominant against a couple of years ago. Chandler Morris, if he stays healthy, really appears to be legit. He was 19 for 27, 264 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. This was a team that did not have much hope in Virginia. They only had one player on the Senior Bowl 300 list when there were 53 in the entire ACC. So now after that Coastal Carolina win and the performance by Chandler Morris, you kind of have something to be excited about. For NC State on offense, offensive coordinator Kurt Roper talked about how you have that optimism from some explosive plays that they had, but it's contrasted with just some fundamental mistakes and lack of execution that they had. On defense was the concerning portion, though. The corners' lack of speed just seemed to be glaring in the second half. The first half, they really shut down East Carolina's sort of like horizontal passing game and run game. But then once they changed to more of a downfield passing attack, NC State had no answer for it and almost blew a 17-0 lead. These are two teams that won 5 or 6 games each last year. Not much separation in the final results, but a huge disparity in expectations for this year. The matchup of this game to watch is really going to be the NC State offensive line versus the Virginia defensive line. You would expect NC State to be more dominant than they were against East Carolina. The offensive line also seemed outmatched more than they should be, at least against a squad like East Carolina. And then for Virginia, it's actually probably the deepest position on the entire roster. They brought in some transfers. Hunter Osborne came in from Alabama. Jacob Holmes came from Fresno State, who had some solid production there. And then they retained guys like Jameer Carter, who's a senior nose tackle, and Jason Hammond, and Chico Bennett. They had a few guys that they retained that had some good production and only added to that squad that was not terrible from last year. So excited to see this non-conference game between two ACC opponents.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback battle should be interesting too. I mean, really, I'm really excited for that one. That's probably my favorite part with Chandler Morris. Like his career the years that he had in North Texas were really outstanding. I mean, man, like they really knew how to sling the ball out there in Denton. And then, of course, like MJ Morris, just being one of the more talented younger not MJ Morris, mixed up. I mean, with the transfer portal, it's just crazy because I remember he started some games for NC State. But, I mean, again, pulling up the name too, just brief brain fart. but with CJ Bailey, sorry, not MJ Morris, CJ Bailey. I mean, having a great year, great freshman year last year, and then having 318 yards. I will say though, I do think East Carolina did not get the credit they deserved, honestly, going into the season. I view them as a American Conference sleeper just because they put everything together with Blake Harrell. So I'm not surprised that they were able to kind of hunker down and almost rally to win that one. So I wouldn't be too concerned, I guess. But you watched the game from X's and O's perspective, and so I trust your opinion.
I mean, for the not the AAC, the American Conference now, as they renamed it. For me, it was all Tulane, Navy, Army was really the pecking order, and I didn't really consider too much of anyone outside those three. But no, I only watched so much East Carolina football last year, so I will happily be wrong if they have a good year.
Yeah, I mean, Caton Hauser though, like he did look. I mean, looking at the stats and looking at some of the highlights, like he did look great against NC State. Picked up in the second half, but yeah, like if they're allowing 366 yards to Caton Hauser in East Carolina, a team that wants to run the ball, like Chandler Morris will probably dice them up. Honestly, I mean, so we'll see. I mean, like you said, it's a non-conference game. It's always an awkward situation with this, and just shows how big these conferences are getting. So. But I guess it's good that these original ACC members are playing each other because they are originals. So I guess you take your gruel and eat it.
It's hard to keep track of like who's originally, and was Stanford and SMU, were they founding members of the Atlantic Coastal Conference? I can't remember.
Oh man,
were the California Bears on the Atlantic Coast Conference?
That's a good one.
I don't know. It's hard to keep track. But Omar, what's your third and final game of the week to watch in week 2?
Yeah, so my final game of the week to watch is San Jose State at Texas. And I just want to say for the historical event that is happening. So we got San Jose State's first game on ABC since 2006 when they appeared in front of a regional audience at 7 o'clock Eastern time as part of a West Coast only game that was broadcasted to around 16% of the country in the West Coast. And the way it worked, like that was kind of the awkward period. They're still trying to figure out Saturday night football. That was the first year Saturday night football. And so there was no Saturday night football that week. But what happened was Texas and Nebraska played at noon. So you were still entitled to 2 games, a doubleheader. Texas and Nebraska played at noon, and so the West Coast didn't get that game, as was practice per usual. That usually happened a lot in those days. And so to fill that doubleheader quota or sort of privilege that the West Coast had, San Jose State, Nevada was aired on ABC at 7 o'clock Eastern time in 2006. So really cool to see San Jose State. I want to say, though, like I think the Mountain West TV deal is great because I want to say this is the third time that they've appeared on CBS or Fox in the regular season, on CBS, Fox, or ABC, I should say, in the regular season, and a lot of that's owed to the deal. So, but that being said, like there's a lot of high expectation for San Jose State. I know I trumpeted just the path that San Jose State had to take, and there still is a chance for this to be a special season. Season's not over by any means, and they still could very well be a playoff team. We've seen Group of 5 teams take bad losses and still go to the New Year's Six in past years. Like Tulane comes to mind, losing to 6-6 Southern Miss. I know Jackson, Southern Miss to the top for you, but like San Jose State still has a chance to have a special season. I just think they need Walker Eget to continue to grow. His accuracy remains a concern. He had a couple picks last week against Central Michigan. He's still completing only 57% of his passes. But on the bright side, San Jose State looks like they found their Nick Nash replacement in Danny Scudero, who had 9 catches for 189 yards and a touchdown. I don't think he's going to reach Nick Nash's production, but to know you have a wide receiver 1 after losing the receiving Triple Crown winner, that is a huge asset for San Jose State. That I mean they're lucky that they're lucky that they have such good continuity at receiver. So San Jose State, Texas. Notice how I just didn't talk about Texas. Honestly, like there's enough people talking about Texas in this end of the match.
You do not listen to hardware to learn about Texas football. I will put it
exactly. Yeah, Joe Tess is calling that game too. So we got San Jose State getting the Joe Tessitore treatment.
Joe T's calling that?
Joe T is calling it. And
I know what game I'm watching now.
Yeah, I think the last game he called for San Jose State, if you want like a nice YouTube poll, is 2011 Friday night, San Jose State, Hawaii. That was their first one in the series since 05, I want to say. So he called it Friday. That was back when Joe Test was calling Friday night games.
Next week we need to bring back showing the time slot in the TV channel that it's on, or streaming service, whatever it is. But what time is this game?
So this is at noon on ABC. This is the real big noon
man,
kickoff.
I have stuff at noon. Man, there's already enough noon games this week that I'm trying to keep track of. So
yeah, one more thing, Jackson. So I guess now that we show pictures, let's pull up that coverage map from ABC. The last time that San Jose State played on ABC. Look at that. Don't you miss seeing stuff like that? A coverage map in this day and age in college football. Also, Alaska and Hawaii will receive San Jose State, Nevada. So had to pull that up now that we're pulling up images and stuff like that with the StreamYard platform. So yeah. Just had to show
that's awesome. I mean, look at Nevada. Imagine I don't know how precise that line is, but imagine you're a big college football fan in Nevada and you call your buddy, "Hey, you watching this?" It's like, "No, I'm not. I don't get it. I gotta go. Let me come next door."
That's hilarious.
For my last game of the week, I'm gonna go with Illinois at Duke. Illinois has about as much returning production as anyone. They're a sleeper for the Big Ten. That's a pretty popular sleeper to have. Maybe not the blockbuster names like Ohio State or Penn State has. They only had 4 guys on the Senior Bowl 300 list, actually, which surprised me. But they are really a continuation of their 2024 squad that went 10-3. This is a run-heavy offense that is running back by committee, which travels well typically. For Duke went 5-1 at home last year, including an overtime win versus a CFP team in SMU. Quarterback Darian Mensah, who we already mentioned before, transferred from Tulane. Just incredible portal grab. Seems to be worth every penny of his mega NIL deal. And he also has an experienced wide receiver room to support him. Their top 4 wide receivers are actually all grad students who have played college football for at least 4 years, which is pretty rare to have multiple of those guys, much less 4 on one squad. And then on defense, Manny Diaz, I've been critical of him before, but he has found a way to make Duke's defense look like the best in at least the state of North Carolina. I'll put it that way, just to make a little dig at Bill Belichick's debut. But Illinois Duke, last game of the week that I'm excited to watch. Let me pull up the TV real quick because I don't have.
While you pull that up, Jackson, like that game was actually the 6-day option. Illinois Duke, it was either Illinois Duke or San Jose State, Texas on ABC at noon. So yeah, it's interesting that we picked both ends of that 6-day TV option. But yeah, like Darian Mensah versus Luke Altmaier will be an interesting quarterback matchup for sure. And I mean, who knew that Brett Bielema could sling the ball? That a Brett Bielema-led team could sling the ball, honestly. Like,
right?
Really surprised. And, I think
a lot of it's set up by the run game. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Hey, I don't know. This is not like going to be an air raid offense as good as the squad that they have. But no, this is noon on ESPN. So I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm going to be running to the bathroom. My stomach's going to be pretty upset at right around noon on Saturday. Going to be, going to have to disappear a lot to keep track of all these games, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's still interesting games. Like there may not be the top 25 matchups at all, but I mean, their upsets still happen, and there's still bowl races that like we highlighted with Rutgers and Miami. There's still bowl races to play for and to still consider. So, still an exciting week. Really, really excited for it, and just to hunker down in front of the TV for another week of good college ball.
Absolutely. Omar, that is about it for me. You got anything else to add before we hop off?
No, I do not. Thanks to everyone for watching and joining. I mean, hopefully you had enough time just to listen to this on your work commute by the time this is posted. And until next time, everyone, peace, love, and soul in the Burger Popper. And Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. So, goodbye.